So
So as we went through the series and we decided not to script this, can you explain why we came up with not scripting this?
yeah, in research, when you conduct a research interview, you go through ethics, and you construct questions to demonstrate that in your question you're not going to lead the person, you're not going to influence the outcome. So what you tend to do is when you're interviewing certain people, when there's an awareness of the questions, some skilled people can manipulate the situation and tell you what you want to hear, respond to that question. When it's unscripted, there's a level of uncertainty and risk. But by and large, people tend to be very truthful in an unscripted situation because they have to think on their feet, they have to improvise. Plus the fact that it's unnatural to have posed questions. You know, unless you're disciplining your children and you give them a specific question. Most of our connections in the community are informal. Even though you might be given an instruction and say, look, can I have a patty, please? The person might have to, in saying that I haven't got any patty, they might come out with a story and you respond to that. So I look at it, it's a bit like cause and effect. You present somebody with a question and they're going to talk. And really, if you look at it, it's called a talk show. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a research interview, it's a talk show. And we call it a chat show because, you know, I suppose in the inner city we say chat. So, and if I'm being honest, the one thing for me is that the music business is very choreographed, it's very staged. On TV, it's very slick. But in reality, our lives are uncomfortable, they're messy, they're not. So for me, it's like if people play our interviews, they can imagine that person's sitting next to them in the front room, sounding like them, pausing, stumbling, you know. So it's a sense that you're going back to that tradition, what your parents talk about, you know, just having a conversation. Because I think that being too sophisticated and too well rehearsed doesn't always necessarily mean that it's actually more effective. And I think in the inner city, the power of the inner city is in the conversation. It's in the expression, the vernacular. And I think one of the 6 principles in the Roadman's Guide is remember. And sometimes we need to remember where we come from. We need to remember who we are. We need to remember the importance of simple answers. We need to remember that connection. You know, it's important that when the whole family's sitting together, we need to remember that sometimes the whole family needs to listen to the conversation. So part of that unscriptedness is to make people remember real conversations that a lot of us don't have anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that touched me was that everybody we interviewed, and one of the feedback is that they've never really asked questions solely about them. It's always been about their profession and their status of name. So for me, having it unscripted was really giving them a platform to really talk about themselves rather than their profession and the problems that they're tackling. It was good and refreshing just to hear their journey and who these people actually really are. Because I think sometimes we just see them as a youth worker, but they're a father. They've got families. They're emotional like everybody else. They've been through struggles. So,
well, one of the key things that we've talked about is the function of the Roadman's Guide. It has to be a learning experience. And one of the things, I suppose, put my academic head on, we know that learning takes place when people either connect to who the person is and what that person knows. And so what makes the Roadman's Guide really important is that it becomes a learning experience because you connect to that person's story. Knowing what someone does, that's good for information purposes. But when you're listening and you're in a state of distress or shock or you don't know what to do, when you hear a connection with someone else who's done what you've done or feels like you do, that connectivity, when you look at their journey, you can say, oh, I can do what they've done because they can follow that journey. Whereas if you suddenly say, I'm a social worker, how did you get there? And to tell you the truth, I know it sounds strange, but the Roadman's Guide, just for you as we come to close this, is like a verbal satellite navigation system. And I wanted to say, and I'm sure Richard, in his closing statement, that you'll learn something. There's many different things. I mean, I can listen to these over and over again, and I hear new things. So for me, I just want to say to all of you who's listening, enjoy the Roadman's Guide. I mean, I normally end by saying something that's quite important to me, and I do want to emphasize about staying safe, walking good, and bringing light into the darkness. Our lives are hard at times. They're full of pain and difficulty. But one of the things that you'll hear from the Roadman's Guide is that throughout the darkness that everybody thinks the inner city is radiating this light. And rather than be like a 60-watt bulb, I want this to be a 1,000,000-watt bulb, and it just illuminates the community. So, Richard, as the producer, as the man, the legend that is, having a final word, what would you finally like to say to people listening before they get in to the Roadman's Guide?
I'd like to say to thank everybody behind the scenes who's possible to put this together. We worked really hard to make this come together. Natch and Secret is about building blocks of lives, and that's the ethos. The Secret is about the secret creativity. Just having the things like the Roadman's Guide put together is why we like producing the stuff that we do, what we normally wouldn't do, which compared to the old contemporary and, music corporate world that you see of today. So that's something for us then I would take. And I say to everybody, there is something in there for everybody. There's something there that you can sit back down with a cup of tea and donkey biscuits in there and listen to, and you will have it on repeat. And like Martin said, every time you go over it, you will learn something new from it, because we all learn from each other at all different stages of life. And I'd like to give a big thank you for Martin, who is a writer, a blogger, a lecturer, and always somebody who's looking out what can he bring differently to the community that can be received. And we hope that you all receive this in a very positive way, and hope that you still walk with the light every day, and it gives people empowerment, it embraces people, it ignites people to want to get up now and push on with their own life. So we're talking about impact. So we always do things that we like to have an impact and on other people's lives. So, that's what I'd say.
So people, welcome to the Roadman's Guide.
Peace out.